you'll see something that you're just like that can't be inherently Christian necessarily, but then you dig deeper into it and you're like, oh, there's Jesus in that, like you see it. Um,
The creation can't help but reflect its creator because the creator is in some way infused into that creation.
exactly. Yeah. Just like how when we as humans create something, you can kind of see the human creator in it, but going back even further, you can see the great creator in it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Artists of the Way. I'm John, the host. Today, I am joined by a good friend of mine, Jordan Awe, who I haven't seen in like a long time. It's been a while.
A couple months, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Jordan, we got to know each other through the Grand Rapids theater scene. You, kind of like me, have done things in as many theater communities as you can. You've done Kalamazoo Civic, Master Arts, Arise, HPA, a whole lot of stuff. And now you're studying at Sight and Sound with their conservatory.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Just like you said, just trying to get my uh artistic hand, I guess, in as many areas as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm super excited to chat with you about that because like conservatory and theater training is something I've always thought would be like really cool,
Yeah.
but was never just not where God led me. So I'm really excited to delve into your experience there, and just catch up and see how you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, so I got a couple questions that I ask everybody at the start of each episode. First, are you working on anything at the moment?
That's a good question. There's a lot. Um, Kind of as you would suspect with a conservatory program. Um, I think the main thing that I would say I'm working on right now um, is being a part of a conservatory in a theater setting, being attached to a theater that like we are. Um, we are not only just students there, but we are also working alongside cast members with their current show. Um, so that show currently is Moses. We opened back in March, and we're actually, as of recording today, we only have 44 performances of Moses left. So we got about 4 weeks left of Moses. Um, so yeah, so that's what I would say I'm currently working on, and then we're about to once we're finished with Moses, we get right into rehearsal for the Christmas show, Miracle of Christmas, which will be November to December. Those are shows that I would say I'm working on right now. Of course, there's things for classes, monologues, songs,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of movement
Yep.
oriented things. This semester I have two dance classes and a stage combat class, so
Mm.
that keeps me physically active,
Yep.
uh, as well as doing shows 9 to 8 times a week. So yeah, and then um, I was debating when you asked me this question, I was debating if I was going to talk about this or not. Um, but I feel like it'll the more people that know about it, the more it'll kind of push me to keep working on it. I've
Yeah.
started dabbling in writing and composing
Mm.
as of the beginning of this year. Um, me It started with just an idea that I wanted to work on, and then eventually a classmate of mine, we kind of became a team and started working on this together. So I've started dabbling very lightly in writing and composing, um, with some just simple song ideas and stuff like that. And then um, overall, we're working on trying to write a full musical um, that hopefully will happen. I'm not sure if it will. It's a very big, daunting task,
Yeah.
and we're very busy. We started it when we were in rehearsals for Moses back in like February, and then as soon as we opened in March, like we did nothing with it again
Yep.
until kind of like it re-entered my brain a little bit a couple weeks ago, and started working on it again. But yeah, so
That's super
I think,
exciting.
yeah, I think that's everything I would say I'm working on at the moment.
Yeah. That's super cool. Yeah, writing is a whole different process and is a whole different time frame
Yeah.
from doing shows and acting. But that's
Uh,
super cool.
Yeah, I'm really finding that like it takes way more. I mean, I knew this before, but like really doing it, it takes way more than just an appreciation. I feel like as performers, you have an appreciation for the intricacies of writing. Like I love when
Hmm.
um composers or even the writers of the book of a play or a musical, they create such depth with reoccurring themes, especially musically. I love reoccurring
Hmm.
themes and like
Yeah.
the ability to story tell with the orchestration and then trying to be that complex with my own writing when I have never written anything and have
Hmm.
had the very basics of music theory um, in conservatory. And now I'm like, I'm gonna write a whole 2 act musical. It's a very daunting task, but yeah,
Yeah.
you really learn appreciation for what others do when they do that
Yeah.
regularly. So
Yeah, that's super cool. And I do think there's something to be said for like, yeah, it's daunting, but you do learn a lot by just jumping right in because every other every other minute, a lot of times it's like you're running into something where it's like, oh, I haven't encountered this before. What's the way that I approach this? And so I feel like, yeah, that's a lot, but it's also it can be a great way to like learn because you're just constantly checking off new things that you're discovering how to navigate and do with something. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah,
Cool. So the second question is how has God been using art in general in your life right now?
yeah. Wow. He every day he uses it. Um, just I think I am a lot more in a better situation to for God to work in art as I'm
Yeah.
surrounded by not just art but surrounded by Christian art all the time,
Hmm.
um, both in shows and in classes with um, different Bible and discipleship classes. Um, I mean, he's just been really honing in on, and this is something that I've been learning for years, but has just become such a bigger part of my life as I am um, studying musical theater, and that's just
Hmm.
that every story is his story,
Yeah.
um, in a way, in a much deeper way, and that's I think that just stems from the us as humans, as his creation. We are the we are the living um, what's the word? The just the living creation of his story. Like
Yeah.
his story is just weaved into our very being.
Hmm.
So you see that even um, in Christian art and secular art or non-Christian art and all that stuff is just seeing him in everything. And
Yeah.
he's just been really making that apparent in like you'll see something that you're just like that can't be inherently Christian necessarily, but then you dig deeper into it and you're like, oh, there's Jesus in that, like
Hmm.
you see it. Um,
The creation can't help but reflect its creator because the creator is in some way infused into that creation.
exactly. Yeah. Just
Hmm.
like how when we as humans create something, you can
Yeah.
kind of see the human creator in it, but going back even further, you can see the great creator in it. And that's been something that he's been working on. Well, yeah, working on for a long time, but very much so this year. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, trying to think of
That's awesome.
anything else, but yeah.
I mean, that's enough. That's cool.
I mean,
I
I'm
guess
sure
seeing
I
the
could.
glory of God in things is fine.
Yeah, I'm sure that question could take us the whole entire podcast to be like, well,
Yeah.
there's this thing and this thing, and yeah, but
Yep. Awesome. Cool. Well, I want to jump to chatting about just what it's been like working training at Sight and Sound with the conservatory, and especially how that's been intersecting with your faith. But first, just in general, like, what's that experience been like studying at this conservatory?
Yeah. It's great. I it's both entirely what I expected and not at all.
Mm.
Um, I think was one of the biggest discoveries getting here um, a year ago. Um, Literally, it's very interesting that we're talking about this now because it's literally been a year that I've been here, like this week.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah, it's just a great environment to be surrounded in. I mean, theater has always been a love of mine to be in that sort of family community that theater just creates
Yeah.
sort of a family dynamic of how tightly knit you are. Um, but then for that to be a Christian family, people that you can go to about things that are going on or struggles that you're having, just looking for advice. Um, People that you can count on and trust. And I I know that like John, I know you're kind of familiar with that with like the
Hmm.
experiences that we have shared, like
Yep.
Arise. Um, it's it's like Arise but on steroids,
Yeah.
which is an insane thing to think of with Arise already feeling like it's on steroids.
Yep.
But yeah,
It's
it's
steroids taking steroids.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, and it's just so nice to be because even people outside the cast, like people that we'll run into, because there's so much more than just the cast and the crew.
Yeah.
Um, it's Sight and Sound is a huge operation, um, not just in scale of building, but in team.
Hmm.
You run into people from HR or customer service or the people that work in the lobby helping the guests with ticket sales or with merchandise or any of those things. And all these people are just, it's so cool to see all these people just working for the same goal of just bringing Christ to the world.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and then just being able to study something that the Lord has um, worked in me with and placed a desire to work on of my artistic craft. Just being in a place where that is like celebrated and in a way redirected.
Hmm.
Because of course it's you go to any secular conservatory, they're going to celebrate your creativeness,
Right.
but here it's like that's great, and how are we going to use that for the Lord, and it's
Hmm.
just great to have um, that knowledge and direction. Um, yeah.
Cool. Has there been something that you've studied so far, like a class or something that has been super fresh or exciting that you haven't gotten a chance to work on before in like the high school or community theater world?
Yeah. Um, it's there's so much because I feel like when you're in high school, and I really appreciate all the training I got in high school. I would not be
Hmm.
the performer that I am today without any of the
Yep.
people that helped me in high school. Um, but even when you have like with HPA 9 months, it's so little time to
Yep.
like instill a lot of like very intricate ideas because acting is on the surface acting is kind of you're acting, you're doing the thing.
Yep.
But then I got here and we started learning specific things, and I'm like, there's so much more to everything because you break theater up and it's like, oh, it's you got singing, dancing, acting, but like then you go deeper and you're like, okay, with singing you have tons of different techniques there, music
Hmm.
theory, instruments, all that kind of stuff. You get to dancing, you have ballet, you have tap, you have musical theater.
Yep.
Um, and then with acting, it's the same way. It's I think we talked about this a little bit before I even knew any of it, but
Yep.
I'm a little bit more trained now. We've had our first semester was Stanislavski
Yep.
and followed the second semester with Chekhov, and right now we're doing Meisner.
Mm-hmm.
which are
You're
just
hitting all my homeboys, man.
those are the acting homeboys, man. Those are yeah. Um yeah, so just to like have my eyes kind of like opened to,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we're not just acting. There's a method to this madness. And of course
Mm-hmm.
what's great is there's no one way to do it.
Right.
Um that's one of the things that's been really cool that they've instilled in like what they're doing is they're not being like you have to be when you leave here, you need to be a Stanislavski actor
Yeah.
because they're like nobody does that. Nobody has
Yeah.
one thing. So I really like how they're like we're going to give you as a kind of our motto has become for all these acting classes. Um, they're giving us tools in our tool belt that we can just
Yeah.
use later.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well, and
not that
that's
I'm
so important because it's such a psychological thing that if you're trying to do it a way that either doesn't click with your brain or that isn't emotionally healthy for you, then like that can be not just like unhelpful for you as an actor, but like so dangerous if you're
right,
like doing something that just doesn't work for your brain, but it's like, oh, this is the way to do it, so I have to, you know?
right, right. And another aspect of it is actors. We are not just storytellers, but we're truth tellers. Even though we
Mm-hmm.
may be playing something that is not necessarily in the real world true for us,
Yeah.
but we're still portraying truth. And to do
Mm-hmm.
that consistently, I think that's one aspect that Sight and Sound really covers because they're familiar with long show runs. I mean,
Yep.
on a normal year, when they're doing their premiere show and they do one show throughout the whole year, they're doing over 400 performances.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, we're switching up being able to do two shows, but still, we've been by the time we're done with Moses, we'll have done 300 shows. And
Yep.
so one of the things they really hammer in is like if you just do one type of acting and you're just doing the same thing every single day,
Oh yeah.
you're eventually going to just lose that authenticity or that truthfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And I know our Chekhov teacher talks about this all the time. He's like, there are things that will work great in this for a while, and then you just need to be ready that like when that stops working, you need to know what the next thing to go is,
Yep.
the next center to work in, or the next memory to pull from, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
something that you can keep that performance fresh and
Yeah.
alive. Not necessarily changing your performance because you don't
But
want to
it's a
you don't
new
want to
layer.
mess with the whole picture, but it's
Mm-hmm.
something new for you that you can keep being real and telling the truth.
Yeah, I remember when I've done like traveling troops for years and years and years, and you've always got to keep them fresh. But when we did Fiddler, for some reason I had a really hard time at the end when everybody's leaving Anatevka, still being emotional. I
Right.
like just somehow like once we got to opening, I was like, it's sad, but like I've already been sad. So we were all like separated into these family units. And so every time me and my family unit would meet together before we went on stage for Anatevka, and we would talk about a new memory and create this new fun story from our past as a family unit. And then our family unit was splitting in Anatevka. Half of us was going one way, and then the other half was going another way. And so then we would always walk on with that memory in mind. And that was always that new fresh layer because then eventually it would expire. Like at a certain point, my yarmulke was like really emotional. And then like 2 days later, I was like, yeah, she gave me this yarmulke. That's sad. But it like
Yeah.
didn't, it expired. So
Right.
yeah.
Because it's difficult to be even though you're reliving the same moment every night. For you can't keep reliving that because eventually
Right.
you
Cause you
just you're
cope
just
with it.
numb to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh well, it's what it is, and
Yep.
that's something that's helpful to us in the real world when with true sad things or true
Mm-hmm.
difficult things. But when you need to convey the same emotion every night, eventually the
Yep.
audience is going to get that from you unless it's fresh and it's new. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So just going deeper in everything and like realizing there's so much more. Not that I came with with the thinking that I was like I wasn't going to learn here
Right.
or that there's not a deeper level to it, but just realizing how much of a deeper level there is to
Mm-hmm.
every aspect of performing.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I'm decently studied on it, and I still am like, there's so much more that I could learn if there were resources in the area for it. It's just
Yeah.
the amount of people that have written such wisdom on acting, which is of course my love, but there's just yeah, it's crazy.
Hmm.
So, um are there any ways where throughout the process of studying acting or dance or music, um or any other classes at the conservatory, that you found it like assisting or like God using it in your spiritual growth over the last year?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The easy answer I feel like is in our discipleship classes because
Mm,
that's a real direct line of like of it being in the Word or being reading books and commentary on the
yep.
Word and just discussing our faith um, has been just really influential to have this a weekly meeting of just discussing biblical themes and living our lives as Christians has been one of those really obvious, understandable ways of the Lord reaching me. But yeah, I mean, um, I think in all of my classes, um, there's a common theme of um, just the Lord um, just opening up my heart and mind to yes, this is what He has called me to do, um, but I still have m much to learn, which I know,
Mm,
but a lot of the times, one of the hardest things for me is comparing myself to others, which I think is
mm,
a struggle for a lot of performers
yep.
because in this industry it's what everybody else is doing. They're comparing you to and so
Hmm.
and so to so and so, and
Yep.
um, so then to um, just be working so tightly with nine other classmates that are all so talented and I mean you're all in this program together for a reason, but just seeing where others succeed and you're struggling is just
Hmm.
tough. And then other areas when you're striving and they're struggling. Um, but yeah, the Lord has just really instilled and worked on community. I feel we even had a whole book for discipleship a couple weeks for just building a community as Christians. Because of course we have the church as our community,
Right.
but within that you have closer communities and you need
Hmm.
communities where you are each day, where you work, where your family unit is a community in a
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, just growing in the the awareness of we're all there with different gifts and talents and abilities within this grander gift and ability of performing that he has given us, um, and just kind of finding where we fit in that.
Hey, friends, I hope you're enjoying today's episode. I just wanted to take a second to share with you guys the exciting project that's in the works here at Artists of the Way. We're going to be staging a production of Godspell in 2024. Godspell is a musical based on the Gospel of Matthew. The script is comprised mostly of excerpts from the Gospel of Matthew, and the songs are mostly old hymns or straight scripture, which has been recomposed into kind of a rock musical theater style song. It's a wonderful show. I grew up on it. It's been a passion project of mine to direct for 5 years, and I'm so excited to tackle it. If you want to know more about that, you can visit our website, artistsoftheway.com, and visit our Godspell page. There you'll be able to find show details and information on fundraising if you're interested in helping support the production. If you want to stay up to date with everything regarding Godspell or our podcast, sign up for our email newsletter. We have a newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks. We'll let you know when new episodes are posted. I'll share some thoughts that I've had over the last couple weeks, and we'll be keeping you guys up to date on everything Godspell related. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of the show. So, as you guys have been working on things, have you guys done like scenes together, like scene work, and then like presented stuff, or has it mostly been like monologues and solos and things like that?
Yeah. We've had a few chances to work on things together. One of the actually very cool aspects that I didn't know we didn't know about until we actually were in class and being told this. What they like to do a lot, and we've done gotten a couple chances to, is not only do we get scenes with other classmates to work on, but they get volunteers from the professionals in the company
Mm.
to then come and work with us. So we we've gotten a couple chances where we'll get paired up with a cast member, and the first time we did it, we didn't know anybody, but they just paired us up for scenes that they had picked out, and then we were in charge of like the rest of the weeks before presenting it. We would meet together and run the scene and work on it. Um, and then we'd present it in class, and we'd get notes and we'd work on it for a couple of minutes. And then somebody else would go. And then in like 2 weeks after that, we would present it finally for a grade um, to kind of see like where the scene will grow from there.
Hmm.
We've done that, I think, only in two classes. Um, we've done scenes with castmates and classmates in our Stanislavski class, and we've so far only done, excuse me, we've only had scenes with castmates for Shakespeare, but
Okay.
we're about to we're actually about to do scenes with classmates for this semester of Shakespeare. Um, yeah, I completely forgot about Shakespeare. Crazy.
That's okay. Have you
Yeah,
done Shakespeare before doing it here?
I have not, and it um that kind of bums me out, but I'm also thankful for that.
Uh huh.
Um, just because I thought I kind of liked Shakespeare. I thought it was interesting and I was excited to learn about it, but I had never been like truly introduced to it and getting to do it.
Hmm.
Um, and then coming here and like um during first semester we had a theater history course and we had to watch or read Hamlet. So that was like my first time like watching a full
Yep.
real Shakespeare thing that wasn't like an adaptation of the story.
Right.
So so I watched the one with what's I'm totally blanking on his name. Um
What's he played?
Doctor Who.
Yes, David Tennant. That's the
David
best.
Tennant,
That's my
thank
favorite
you.
Hamlet.
It was really good and I really enjoyed it, and something I found over this year, I mean it kind of stemmed from kind of learning this in our Shakespeare class of like Shakespeare's meant to be heard. Like a lot of people will read
Yes.
Shakespeare and they'll be like, I don't get it. And then other people will like listen to Shakespeare and they're like,
Hmm.
I kind of get it. And I was like, yeah, that makes so much sense. But also just seeing the difference in classmates of like kind of who gets Shakespeare and who doesn't. Um, there are some who get it, some who still struggle with it.
Yep.
But they're trying. They're not like, I give up. I don't get it. But they're like, it's just a lot harder. And I'm like, good for you for still trying. But like
Yeah.
some of them like will like watch it and then have subtitles and have the script and they're like just trying to absorb as much as possible. And I remember when I watched Hamlet, they were like, how did you intake it for class? And I was like, I just watched it. I think I threw on subtitles to make sure I didn't miss anything, but like
Yep.
I just watched it and they were like, and you understood it? I was like, yeah.
Well, when you have actors that which this is the challenge of doing Shakespeare, but when you have actors that understand it, then even if you're not catching all the lines, or every meaning of every word. Like you understand the story because the
Right.
actors are communicating that to you.
Right. And that's definitely like what I found so much more helpful was like I was like, well, you could tell kind of what they were saying just from the inflection of their voice, how they were
Mm-hmm.
saying the line, the
Mm-hmm.
intentionality behind it. And it really just clicked. And but I also feel like I've been finding I feel like it feels like a blessing from the Lord of him being like, you're gonna understand Shakespeare just a little bit more than some other people. And I'm like, cool, thank you. Um, but yeah, it's
It's
been one of
also
my favorite
great too
things to
because
just learn.
the more you understand it, the more you start to see where he's coming from, and especially from a Christian perspective, there's so much in those. It's because we just did Hamlet, and there's like, now I'm totally off topic. Now we're just talking about Shakespeare, but I mean, there was just, and I wanted to do Hamlet for like 5 years before we did Hamlet. I wanted to do it um, when I did Mary Poppins in 2017. Brad Garnott was like, "You could do Shakespeare," and I just watched Hamlet, and then Tim and I joked about it, and we were like, we could be like David Tennant and Patrick Stewart. Then we were like, hang on, that would be super cool. So for like 5 years, I'd read it once or twice a year and was like forming what I would want to do with this character. And then when I was actually doing it, just so much more rich theological meaning came out of that story.
Yeah,
And he just put so much in there. And it's so incredibly Christian. It's
yeah.
crazy.
It's What's crazy is Hamlet is just. I love how it's always Hamlet because that was the same thing for me. Like it's
Hmm.
always Hamlet is the introduction. Like
Yeah.
I just just being on the internet like 2 years ago, I think it was the first time I saw it, probably. Just being on the internet, I scrolled across a video of um I'm terrible with actors' names. But he is I think he's a Scottish actor and he
Is
played
he
Hamlet.
the was he the one
Uh,
who played
Andrew
Moriarty
Scott.
in Sherlock?
Andrew
Yes,
Scott.
Andrew Scott. Yep.
I almost said Adam Scott, and that's a completely different actor who I don't think has done Shakespeare or should do Shakespeare, but
Shakespeare a la
and
Parks and Rec. Let's go.
oh, it would be its own thing. It would be its own strange thing. But anyway, yeah, I just saw like if it was just the to be or not to be speech of
Hmm.
his performance. And that was the first time that I like heard Shakespeare because I had heard Shakespeare before because it's
Right.
referenced everywhere. It was the first time I heard it and I went, "Oh, he's talking about death. He's talking about like I like literally just
Hmm.
pieced it all together and I was like, I know exactly what he's saying and thinking through. And I think that was very much on like Andrew Scott's performance of that. And so then I just kind of became obsessed with the to be or not to be speech. So that was
And
one of my
it's
monologues in Stanislavski. I did that and I was not prepared to yet because I hadn't taken any Shakespeare. But it was fine. But yeah.
it's crazy how differently everybody interprets well just his character as a whole, but that speech especially too.
Yeah.
Like he's such an ambiguous character, you can really almost make him whatever, and it's so cool to see what an actor does with that when they approach it.
Right. Which I think is just it's just Shakespeare's excellence just shining through. Be
Yep.
like, you wrote a character that so many people take in so many different directions.
Hmm.
And unless they're way off base, which I mean, I'm sure there are some out there,
Yep.
but unless they're way out there, even then it may still work. But like most of the time, it's like wherever you take it, wherever they take it, if they are
Hmm.
understanding the text, it works really, really well. But
Yeah, that's crazy. Anyways, let's get back on topic here after geeking out about Shakespeare a little.
we
um,
can nerd out about Shakespeare some other time.
yeah, he's been here for 600 years. He'll be here still.
He'll be here still.
Um, I guess as you've been exploring more characters, or even before Conservatory, just in the process of creating a role and living that out on stage, which I think is a really profound experience. Um, is there one that really sticks in your mind where the process of playing a character or delving into them, God has highlighted something or helped you with something or used that in some way, or it's made you realize something else about the world or God?
Wow. Yeah. Uh,
I know it's a really
I'm
small,
my,
easy question.
I'm like thinking through all of my roles.
I know.
Luckily, I can skip most of the like the ensemble ones, the ones I
Playing the
completely
plant
created.
in Mary Poppins, I'm sure revolutionized
I just learned so
everything.
much about nature. And I love how you brought up the plant. I didn't even get the chance. Yeah, just Mr. Bundles just completely just changed me. No. Um, yeah, probably the one which I feel like this is kind of cheating because it's not, but it's not. But Pilgrim was such an experience
Hmm.
that I mean, honestly, for the first run when we were in Colorado, there was a little bit of work being done, but kind of that was just the preliminary, I feel like softening of my heart to certain
Mm.
themes because yeah, I was just doing the role, whatever. This is, I'm good at being the funny, flamboyant British guy. Like it's what it is. And then when we brought it back to Michigan, it kind of I dove even deeper into it. And then I can't think of when it actually was, but at some point through touring and stuff like that, hearing a devotional that we got before a show, I was just like, I think it's time that I actually look for myself in these characters. And
Mm.
it was not hard once I started doing that. Once I opened my
Hmm.
mind and heart to it, I was like, okay, how is not necessarily how am I like, but how is Lord Formality like me, or how is Judge Hategood, or even eventually later, how is um, Discontent like me? And
Hmm.
yeah, just being able to search within those characters, and I think that one's really easy because um, it's Pilgrim's Progress, and that's such a human story of like
Yeah.
you can see yourself in almost any of those characters.
Hmm.
And that's the real power of the show because I mean after shows you'd have people coming in and be like, I saw myself in so and so and so and so. And
Yep.
I know you had stories of that with persecution and other roles. But
Hmm.
yeah, just taking the time to like dig in and find, yeah, just parts of myself that um just needed to be worked on through that.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's most of the time um, where where it feels like where you see yourself in a character.
Hmm.
Um, it's I feel like it's rarely, oh, me and this character are good in this same way. Like it can be, but
Right.
like most of the time you're like, man, this character did this awful thing. Shoot, I would do that. I've done that. Oh
Yep.
man. Um, yeah. I Could you remind me of the question real quick? I
Oh
feel like
yeah,
I'm
it
trailing off.
was how's God used the roles or the process of portraying or creating one to kind of highlight something or shape you in some way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, I feel like I'm veering off, but no. Um,
No, you're good.
yeah, so just really to um work on me in that way of and that kind of opened me up to, okay, now you need to look in these characters that you're playing and and find things. Um,
Hmm.
I feel like in that way, even though somebody on Earth here has casted me in a role, I think it's something that I don't often think about, but I think we should of like, yes, somebody on Earth cast you in this role, but more importantly, God cast you in this role for some reason. And
Yeah.
I feel like he always has some sort of something you're gonna learn from that. And
Hmm.
now it may be an experience, like it may be something from the experience of being in that role, but
Hmm.
I feel like more often than not, like there's gonna be something that you have to do as that character or something that is just in that character's story that's gonna relate to you. Um,
Yeah, and that there's some directors that are aware of that too. And I'm even thinking about that too. There's a show I'm going to direct next year that I'm almost at the point of going public with talking about. But there's one role in particular that I'm like, I really want whoever God wants to play this role. Well, there's several, but one in particular. I'm trying to be very vague because I haven't announced things
Yeah,
officially yet. But it's a similar role to one I've played before, and so I just know the power that is in playing a role that somehow God was just like, "Hey, you're gonna get this at just the right point in your life
right.
where I'm gonna use it to shape you so much." I really do think there's some divine ordering there in who plays what characters.
Right. But you definitely, I feel like you definitely just can't look at the surface of a character. You have to
Right.
dig deep into that character. Because, I mean, you can totally destroy yourself if you keep getting villains and you're like, ah, what am I doing?
I
What
know.
about me is like, you're evil, you're a villain, you know?
Well,
But
I
like,
I legit like had that for a second because around the time of Pilgrim, I kept playing bad guys, and I was like, I just need a break from bad guys because I I keep doing that thing where I'm finding the similarities between me and the character, and I was just like, this is just unhealthy for me. Then I got
yeah.
Quasimodo, and everything was okay.
And then it was all good. Yeah, no, I definitely feel that of like Pilgrim was eye-opening, but also at the same time, well, it was eye-opening in a lot of different ways.
Hmm.
Because I think definitely before that, I would see interviews with actors who either are believers or are not believers and are playing some sort of evil or demonic role or something very dark, and they
Yeah.
talk about just the heaviness of the role and like having to shake it off. And in my little child of an actor brain, I was like, "Pff, that's crazy. That's weird. Don't get that into acting." But then doing Pilgrim, like, Vanity Fair is a tough scene, and
It's easy.
I I noticed
It's child's play.
I don't know. It was tough for me, and when
No,
we first
it
did
was
it,
rough.
I was barely like in it because I came in just for the courtroom scene.
Yeah.
But I mean, my character's name was Hate Good, and I had that grouchy face on the whole time. It was
Yeah.
physically taxing, but then later I realized I was like, this is emotionally taxing too, because I'm just radiating hatred. I'm just spewing hatred from every orifice of my body.
Hmm.
And people could definitely feel that because they would be like avoiding me. Like I found at the end of the show when we all come out in costume,
Oh
nobody
yeah.
would talk to me.
I think I had
Nobody.
one person talk to me at the end of the show when we did it in Colorado. I
Yeah.
had like one. It was like, that's because
Which
I murdered somebody.
yeah. And you know, you can take that as a bummer, but also like I did my job. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, and then once I got moved up to discontent, I was in that
Mhm.
scene a whole lot more, and I was just like, it's less about like it was just such a different character and different
Yeah.
things I was finding of like different areas of like where this is like, whoa, I need to separate from this. And luckily
Hmm.
the Lord is with me, and so it's never in
Yeah.
such a dark place that I can't get out of it. But then I
Hmm.
started to open my eyes to it was like, oh, that's no joke, and I need to not worry about it, but also not just foo-foo it, just it's not just pretend like it's nothing. Just I just need to
Right.
be aware of that. So,
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said, which I think, especially in community theater, is not often taught. And I'm hoping to shine a light on a little bit more to like separating yourself from the character, even as you identify similar things. And Stanislavski talks about the magic what of what would you do in that situation if it were actually you to help you disconnect. But because there was one show I did, The Singer, where the character was so much like me that I just like I that's the closest I've gotten to method acting, which is why method acting is the one method of acting where I'm very strongly like maybe don't um
yeah.
because it took me back to all my spiritually dark places, and I didn't disconnect at all because the character, every line connected back to something in my relationship with God. So I was just like, I'm just going to play me,
Yeah.
and that was
Which
a
in a way
really
is
bad
like,
idea.
yeah, which in a way, like, I think we can sometimes go there because
Hmm.
it's just easier. You're just like, oh, well, if it's just me, then I'll just be me. and
Right.
they're like, wait, that you're being you, and that
And
can
it
go
just led to
bad places. So
like an unhealthy kind of, because
yeah,
my brain just went back there and I was like, well, I just regressed. But then doing Hamlet, and I kind of built this up doing all these villains as well, but Hamlet especially, he's such an emotional character. You have to really get into him. But everybody has a really strong view of Hamlet, and Hamlet is generally makes a lot of bad decisions. And so I was like,
really,
I know. So from the start, I was like, I have to work really hard at making sure that Hamlet is Hamlet, not John.
mm,
And John is John, not Hamlet, even though I can get in and relate. And I think there's not a lot talked about in community theater about how to do that healthily.
yeah, because I feel like it's because, like I said before, you're such a limited time
Hmm.
to then to teach such intricate ideas, because those are very intricate ideas in
Hmm. Yep.
Stanislavski and Chekhov and Uta Hagen and all those different
Hmm.
things. There's just so much untangling you have to do when you get into
Hmm.
it that
Yeah, it's a lot.
you're coming in for 2 months to do a production of, I don't know, some sort of musical. You're coming in
Sound of
trying to do the
Music.
Sound of Music. I was
Yeah.
just about to say Sound of Music.
We're like, what's
Uh,
the most money
what's
making musical we can think of?
Oh yeah. You're coming in to do Sound of Music for you have 2 months. You can't like be like, okay, sit everybody down.
How are you not a Nazi? Let's
How
talk
how are
about
you
that.
how are you not like them?
Yo.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's cool. I do feel like I'm almost soapboxing here, so I'm going to say it and then be done so I don't soapbox too long. But I definitely feel like there's a lot of room for, especially in GR, because it's like I feel like it's borderline a professional theater city. It's like almost
Mm,
there.
yeah.
Um, so I feel like there's definitely room for the theaters and the creatives to take a lot more time in forming the artists that are there and working together to do that. And we've talked about that at Master Arts some, and I think the broader community is looking into that a little bit. But
Yeah.
I think bringing that more in-depth professional training to a amateur, quote unquote, or hobbyist realm has a place because people are like smart enough to get it.
Right.
So I'm hoping that happens.
Yeah.
Anywho, before I monologue too long, we are getting near the end of this episode. It's been really lovely to talk to you again and really great to
It's been
see you
great
again.
talking to you, John. I've
Yeah,
missed you.
I've missed you too, man. This is awesome. Um, so I have a final question that I ask everybody. Again, I'm going to get back on my soapbox because this connects to my soapbox. Bring it back on. Um, I grew up in the amateur theater world, but I have such a passion for acting, and so for me, it was hard to find resources, and I felt like I had to learn from doing. So something I really want to do with the podcast is help people find resources to grow in their art and their faith. So if there were some resources you would recommend, or what are some resources you would recommend for people who want to grow as an actor or grow as a follower of Christ?
Yeah. Um, Definitely I I've been listening to the podcast since the beginning, and I know this is the question. And literally since like the first episode, I have been thinking, if John ever asked me to be on the podcast, what might answer this question be? So I've had a lot of time to think about it, and
Uh-huh.
it's not going to be a great answer, I feel. But anyway, um, yeah, because I agree. I think especially before coming here and even being here,
Hmm.
this is why the Sight and Sound was such a draw for me, is that um, unlike a lot of what I've heard of college theater programs, there's a lot of hands-on doing. And
Yeah.
I feel like theater is learned best hands-on doing.
Yeah.
Now that I've been here and I've gotten some of the Stanislavski, Udahagen,
Hmm.
Chekhov, Meisner, all that stuff, I'm finding that idea is important, those techniques and stuff like that. But on top of that, what we do here is so hands-on
Yeah.
with those that I that's my main thing of resources. Like, just go do it. Like,
Hmm.
it's hard at first, but like you just got to jump in wholeheartedly and do it. Um,
Hmm.
it's also hard to recommend stuff. I should, since I'm in school for it, I should have resources, but we kind of
Uh,
don't do a lot of book learning. Like, any book learning we do, we get like handouts and like we're going to talk about this and stuff like that. So I don't have a
yep.
lot of books. Um, I would say for acting, do research.
Hmm.
Just try and just get as much as you can, because that's the beautiful thing about acting techniques is they're sub subjective and objective in a way of like
Yeah.
you can learn the history of it, you can learn everything about how Stanislavski, started it, and then the modern style of acting, and then just
Yep.
there's this tree trickle down of all
Hmm.
of the students that took their own ideas. And that was the thing that like Stanislavski started it, and then they all were like, I really like this part of it, I'm going to expand on this.
Almost like
And now we,
immediately.
yeah, immediately they were just like, just spread out and do whatever you want
Yeah.
based on this. So, but I feel like we're blessed with the hindsight of being able to now go and just study Stanislavski and then study each of those students and those the
Hmm.
students of theirs and students of theirs,
Yep.
and just accumulate knowledge. And then the beautiful thing is, if something you don't agree with something, you don't understand it. If you don't understand something, I would highly recommend trying to understand it even more,
Hmm.
research it more. But if it's something that just doesn't work for you as an actor, you don't have to use it,
Yep.
you know? But it's good to just have knowledge, um, to be able to discuss with other performers, when you're
Yeah.
working with a director or other actors. If you can speak in the same language, it's so helpful.
Hmm.
Um, so that would be my thing for acting. Um,
Do you
uh,
have like a technique or method that you're vibing with in particular?
I I was really vibing with Chekhov.
Okay.
Um, that was very helpful and interesting.
Hmm.
Especially once we got later into it, and I thought I was starting to struggle with it, and then we got done with the class, and I was getting feedback from my teacher, and he was like telling me all the areas of where it was really working for me, and I was like,
Hmm.
I didn't think it was working in those areas, but apparently it did.
Hmm.
And so it was just really, because I already knew that imagination was such a key part of
Yeah.
that, and Chekhov really harnesses on the imagination.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's a method. I'm not saying I'm a Chekhov actor, but
Right.
I'll probably use ideas of that,
Hmm.
more than in other areas.
Cool. Because
Um,
I
but
have his book, so I can throw that on the website if that's the
yeah,
one
yeah, that would
you
be a
were
good one.
vibing with. Yeah.
Um, and I honestly can't give Meisner a fair shout out because we're very new to Meisner.
Fair.
Um,
Meisner's
but
a
anyway,
little weird. I did
it
Meisner
is
with the acting
really, really.
class I just taught, and it was all community theater actors. And I was like, okay, you're just going to say the same thing back and forth over and over again. And they were like, what? They
We've been
had
doing
such
that
a
for
hard time
weeks.
wrapping their heads around it. But then
Yeah.
by like week 3, they were like, wow, this is amazing. But
And I wish I had like taken a picture and like reminded myself of this book, because now I'm thinking of it. One thing that I also found very helpful from Stanislavski was actioning. And
mm,
there's a specific, I can picture it. It's a little red book, and it has all these like actioning words in it.
oh, like
Um,
verbs?
yes,
I don't know if it's a red book. Hang on. It's like,
there's also two versions of the book. There's like the purple
it's
one, the
this
red one.
little
Oh
thesaurus of
yes,
verbs. Is this
yes,
it?
that one. There's the purple one that kind of like explains it a little
Hmm.
bit, but the red
And
one
then this
also
one
has
that's
some
just like,
explaining it.
here, do you need a verb?
That was so helpful once that was explained in Stanislavski. I was just like,
Hmm.
okay, um, yeah, I'm gonna interrogate.
Yep.
It's, I hold on to get that book, and then hold on to that. Um, yeah, I'm gonna try and get through here and trying to condense my thoughts.
Yeah, you're good.
Um, the other thing I would just highly recommend being an actor, something I didn't even do. I did in one area, but not in another area when I got here, is just consume the material that you want to work like that is in the area
Hmm.
that you're working on.
Yeah.
I already nerded out and listened to as many musical theater albums as I could get my hands on, but
Hmm.
there's still so much that I haven't heard and I need to listen to and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And that's the great thing with musical theater is it's music. You can just listen to it.
That one's really
Um,
accessible.
one thing that's hard for me that I haven't done is just reading plays. I need to read more plays.
That's really
I
hard
go
because
back
you
to just read
usually have to
plays.
go to the publisher and order the script and
Yeah,
read it or
yeah,
watch a bootleg, but those are hit
yeah,
or miss.
yeah. And but I mean, even my Chekhov teacher, and we've gotten really close, and his advice to me was just like, just read plays, and they may not be, but you'll find material, you'll get
Hmm.
used to stuff like that. And luckily, even though I don't like reading, reading plays is a lot easier. It's dialogue, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just get as much knowledge as you can in those areas.
Hmm.
And then kind of switching gears to the more Christian aspect. Easy answer, read your Bible. Just dig deep in that.
Yeah.
Um, that's something I've been trying to do a whole lot more, but um, and if you can, uh, Hebrew and Greek, look into that part of it because there's a
Hmm.
lot there. Um,
Hmm.
that's just really cool. Sometimes I just get lost in like studying Hebrew names and going,
Hmm.
"Oh, that's oh cool."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think I can't 100% condone this book. Not condone, that's a weird word. Um, but
Recommend?
yeah, I recommend the book, but again, like with any sort of like um material that isn't just straight up the Bible,
Hmm.
um, examine it for yourself, dig deep into it and just figure out um what aligns with scripture and what doesn't really.
Yeah.
But we had a book in our discipleship class called Who Do You Think You Are by Mark Driscoll.
Uh,
Um, yeah, yeah, and I knew exactly what that face was.
that was the oh Mark Driscoll face.
Oh, Mark Driscoll. Yeah, so that's now you can understand why I'm not like this book because there were even
Yeah.
things and that's what they encouraged us to do when we read through the book and made a book report on it and everything. They were like,
Hmm.
"What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? What did we?" And we just it was just all discussion of like our thoughts on different things. And
Yeah.
there are some definitely good things in there about identity. It's a book on identity
Mm.
and our how our identity is in Christ in all areas of that. And
Hmm.
that was such a good book just describing to me how I need to live my life as a artist
Mm.
because I'm not first and foremost an artist. Even though that's what the
Yeah.
Lord has made me, He has um, put me on this path to pursue
Hmm.
this field. I am first and foremost primarily a Christian, a servant of God.
Yeah.
I'm in Christ. Um, and then just and then secondary, I'm an actor.
Yeah.
Um, and just having that mindset has just changed so much. I kind of had that mindset before, but it really honed in on that.
Yeah.
And if I'm to recommend one more thing, it would be oh, oh, I remembered it. I was like, do I remember the name of this book? Living Together by Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Mm.
Um, that was another book that really um, impacted me. Because I kind of talked earlier about community and how we
Yeah.
are a community, and that just was eye-opening of community with your family, with your church, and with your workplace
Yeah.
and ministry in that way.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's
Awesome.
I feel like I really stretched that question out, but
That's okay. That was good. Awesome. Jordan, thanks again for coming onto the podcast. This has been super awesome. It's been great to catch up with you. Thank you.
thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
Yeah.